say it, so you need to read it.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Glass Less Traveled livecast. My name is Mike Verivia. I'm a certified bourbon steward and the founder of the Fox Valley Whiskey Society. We're going to explore and introduce you to craft distilleries, microbreweries, industry insiders, and professional imbibers to give you the inside scoop on the things you need to be drinking. Tonight, we're going to be talking bourbon, barrels, and business ownership with two of my good friends, Dan and Maggie Orlando. Dan and Maggie, how are you?
Good. Great. How are you tonight?
Good, good. How are you guys holding up over this quarantine?
Well, thank goodness there's bourbon.
much better now that I'm home, 100%.
Yeah. So tell us about DJO Signs Such, what you make, how you got started, and where we can find. By the way, hold on, if I can figure out, there we go. That's actually one of your products right there, right behind me.
Yes,
tell us about what you guys do, what you make, and where we can find your signs at.
Absolutely. So our official name is DJO, which are Dan's initials, Signs Such. So it's Signs Such because it started off as just making signs. Dan was making signs, and then it just took over. We do furniture flips, anything you can think of. He's a woodworker, carpenter by trade, so he can pretty much do anything with wood.
Yeah, I used to hand, well, I still do. I hand carve signs with a router. So like your initials or welcome home or whatever. And at one time, my sister and I and Maggie were sitting around, and she says, "You guys need a name and a website." I think we went on Facebook at that time.
Yep.
And that's where DJO Signs Such came from. That was about 3 or 4 years ago.
Yep.
So
and then we didn't do anything with it.
So Dan, you're a carpenter. Maggie, you're in sales. So you guys kind of built the perfect, it's like that perfect synergy already to have a successful business. One is the crafts and the other is actually selling the product.
Yeah, we are a very good team. I've known him since I was 3 years old. So we kind of mesh well together and make a good team. He's really good at crafting things out of anything. I'll come up with ideas for the house, things that I want, and he's like, "Oh, I'm not making that." And like 10 seconds later, he'll come in with it, and he's like, "Is this what you had in mind?" I was like, "Oh my gosh, yes."
I have a very good knack at being able to visualize things without nothing there. You know what I mean? So like,
yeah.
For instance, when I built my bar in the basement, I had to like draw the cabinets and everything out on the floor so Maggie could visualize it when I was already seeing it in my head. So that's a good knack for me, I think.
So you guys have a pretty wide variety of products that are kind of bourbon and I guess bourbon oriented. Flight holders, you have candle holders, obviously, hold on, I got to figure this out. The barrel heads, you guys have a barrel head. It looks like, is that a Buffalo Trace?
It's a Buffalo Trace one. And then this one is
a George T. Stagg.
Yeah, but this is a Lazy Susan.
A Lazy Susan. And then we got, so this is one that you guys made for us. So this is our wedding gift with the bunghole, which is the hardest stave to get.
And we had to teach your fiance some things about it. I'm like, "We're giving you the one with the bung," and she's like, "Is that something good? What is that hole?" I'm like, "Michael, appreciate it. Trust us." So back to how the bourbon craze came. My husband's birthday is in October. My birthday's in October, and our anniversary is also in October.
Yeah, I can never forget.
Wait, when in October? Because my birthday's in October.
My birthday's October 7th.
Are you kidding me?
No.
Mine is the 6th.
Holy cow.
You fall right in line with us then.
So then we got married on October 8th, and Maggie's birthday is October 13th. So
no way.
If I ever forget her birthday or our wedding anniversary,
He's
in trouble.
He's in trouble for sure. So for his birthday one year, I was talking to a girlfriend from work, Angel, if she's listening, and we were going over things around the house, and we had just started talking, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, we're really into bourbon, And she's like, "Really?" And she sent me this picture of some like really raw bourbon barrels. She lives down in Kentucky. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh." She's like, "Oh, I'll go pick you up some and I'll ship them to you." I'm like, "Okay." So she did. And I gave it to him for his birthday. And as soon as he opened it up, that was when he looked at me. He already had the vision in his head.
It clicked in my head, and I was like, "Where did you get these? Hold on." And I went on Facebook, and I was like, we got to make a trip down to Kentucky.
So
And
2 weeks later,
we were down in Kentucky filling up the bed of my truck with barrel heads and staves, and Christmas time I couldn't keep up.
yeah, it started with
Lazy Susan.
we started very small. We started with Lazy Susans just on Facebook, and it just kind of took off over Christmas because we were right around Christmas time. And we made the Lazy Susans. That's all that we could make because people just wanted so many of them. The supply was crazy. And then
we, we did well, you really can't see those, but the wall hangers like you have, they were just, oh yeah, that's a new one. The wall hangers we were doing are just raw from the right off the barrel. So I didn't customize like this one, and like you have as a customized one, where the ones that we were starting off, which I still do, have the actual stamp that was sitting in the rook house.
Really?
So still on them. And
wow.
hey, Chris, hand me one.
grab one of those.
So this is one of the first ones I did with it's the Jim Beam one. So that's the actual stamp, from the barrel. So that's what we had a couple of those, but the Lazy Susans, she would come and go, you love me, right? Why? I need 6 of them done by Sunday, and it's like Wednesday. But okay. Work my 8 hours at work, come home, work 7-8 hours, and then go to bed.
Well, you guys kind of picked came into this at the perfect time. The bourbon boom really kind of started back, between like 2011, 2014, and it's just kind of taken off from there. And a lot of people have home bars, and they want to know, I'm going to figure this out one of these times. They want to know where you can get stuff like this. So Dina's sitting next to me. So Dina, for everybody that's out there that's listening, if you haven't seen the show before, Dina's my fiance. We filmed this in our bedroom because we don't really have anywhere else to film it. Dina, can you go to the DJO Signs and Such website and post a link in the comments so people know where to go? I went there actually earlier today. And if I wasn't out of work for the past week, I was like, Dina was in the living room working this morning, and I was like, I might have to buy some more things. I saw the Glencairn holders, and you had one that's like it's a Glencairn holder, but it's also like a cigar tray, like an ashtray for a cigar.
So funny you should ask.
So that's
there you go, right there. And I was like, oh man, I don't smoke cigars anymore.
Too as well.
But I mean, this is the kind of thing that people are looking for as, perfect additions to their home bar, whether it's like you've got right there, you've got a little flight holder, or a cigar holder, or even a candle holder made out of the staves, or a barrel head, custom barrel heads like I've got behind me. You guys pretty much do everything. So Dina was able to post the website down there in the Facebook comments for those of you who are looking, and we'll post something later on as well. So you guys owning and operating a business during a pandemic like COVID-19 is hard on business owners, especially entrepreneurs. How has your business model had to change with the shelter-in-place rules?
Great question. So ironically, we were just ready to take the next step with our business right before the pandemic. So we had just leased out a store space in a local town right next to us, East Dundee. So shout out to Kate for River Street Shops. It's a collective of vendors, and it's a beautiful, beautiful rustic building. And she leases out the space to a whole bunch of local vendors. And we had just leased the space there, just set up March 13th.
3 or 4 weeks before stay home and everything shuts.
Yep.
So we had set up everything, and then, of course, what happened. So we've kind of worked with them. They're actually still doing local pickups, and she actually started a website as well, which is huge for us because that gives us some more exposure, which is what we're looking for. And she'll take care of the local pickups and everything like that. We've actually also started shipping our stuff, which is really, really difficult because these are a hunk of mess.
Yeah, you can imagine that box that I built. Imagine shipping that.
Right.
The box I built for you guys. So imagine shipping that. Or the Lazy Susans are not light either.
Right.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. Like I said to Maggie, if the customer wants it, hey, this is how you're going to be able to get it.
Yeah.
So when we make a box, I take it to the UPS, and away it goes.
Well, when we were doing, at the Fox Valley Whiskey Society, when we had started putting out our flight holders, I have one behind me, but there's a bunch of bourbon bottles sitting on top of it, so I'm not going to pull it out. But we had the round flight holders that were just basically 12-inch, edge cut pine. But even to ship those, it was like $30. And I'm like,
Wow.
selling these, it cost me $10 to make it, in material. And I'm selling them for like $30-$40, and then I gotta spend $30-$40 to ship it. I'm like, I'm not gonna.
That's exactly where we're at. But
right now, just our wall hangers are $40 to that's what we're selling them for, and that's what it costs to ship. So they're paying just as much for the product.
It is. I mean, it's shipping and handling.
We have no control over it.
Unfortunately, we don't have any control over it, and if I can bring it to you or you can come pick it up, I'll be more than happy to meet people halfway.
Yeah. We've been doing a lot of porch pickups. We've actually started delivering some stuff to people. Just, they prepay by PayPal. I mean, we pretty much accept any form of payment. We've been really flexible with that. And then, we're trying to meet people, drop things off. They can come pick it up. They can go to the store. Just really trying to stay.
I'll tell you what, when this is all over, I'll come pick it up, and then we'll have some of that Weller that's behind you, some of the Taylor that's behind you, and we'll
you want these?
Have some cocktails.
Those two.
What is that? Oh, is that the Stag Junior?
Junior, and it's the adult C's behind there too.
Oh. Okay, so let's talk about entrepreneurship, because this is, living in the times that we're living in. Obviously I started doing this live cast. You guys have started a business. All entrepreneurs have that kind of like big bang moment, where they first had the realization that they want to turn a hobby into a business. What was your big bang moment, and what made you want to start DJO in the first place?
So 2 separate questions. We'll answer the latter of the two. So my husband's getting older, and he's been a carpenter for over 30 years, about 30 years.
Going on 30 years.
Going on 30 years.
My body doesn't work the same way it does anymore.
Yeah.
And the industry for me has changed since when I was in my early 20s to my late 40s. And I don't like it anymore. I don't like the way the industry changed.
Sure.
For myself. And not that I love being a carpenter. I love doing what I do. I just don't like the industry, the way things have gone. So I had said to Maggie, when we moved to this house, which is going on 4 years now?
Going on 4 years.
We set up the shop. It's the best. I've had a shop in every garage I've ever had, in every house I've ever owned. We set this shop up, and I said, someday this is going to make us money.
Just so you know, his shop, what he's talking about is we have a 4.5 car garage,
4-car garage.
and his shop is 3/4 of that. The other quarter is split between where my car parks and his fishing.
Oh my God. When Dina came over the other day to pick everything up, she showed me the street view, and she's like, "This is Dan and Maggie's house. It's so cute, isn't it?" And I'm like, "That's a really nice house out there," and out there in Sleepy Hollow. And you have a pretty big workspace over there.
It's nice. So starting that in the garage, and then I think the Christmas time when the Lazy Susan thing and that hit was, we could really do this.
So the first part of your question, repeat that one.
What was your big bang moment? As an entrepreneur, everybody has that idea of oh shit, this is more than just a hobby now. We talk with a lot of distillers and home brewers specifically. Guys that own breweries, they all start home brewing, and they're like, you know what, I'm gonna open a brewery. I'm gonna make this a distillery. What was that aha moment?
Yeah, we had a couple. I mean, when we first started the Facebook page with his sister Jerry, we were kind of like, yeah, this is something we want to do. And then when we got the barrel heads from Angel, we were like, oh yeah, we should do this. And then after Christmas time, the New Year hit, and we're like, oh yeah, we are doing this. Yeah, we got DJO Signs Such.
Everybody thinks Christmas time is a time to relax. We got a couple days off from work as carpenters. Not for me. I was working Christmas Eve morning because I had pickups.
People were picking up.
Day. I couldn't stop.
Well, that's a good problem. That's a good problem to have, though, especially as a small business owner, is being so busy. Obviously you want to spend time with your family over the holidays, but when it comes to owning a business and making money to pay the bills, it's like, well,
Do it.
which you got to weigh the options there. So it's a good problem to have. So one of the things that I'm always fascinated about is people's stories, specifically when it comes to what was their first sip of beer or their first sip of bourbon. Everybody has that that story of, I was sitting on the porch with my grandfather and he let me take a drink of his Schlitz or his hams or whatever. Maggie, I know you're a bullet bourbon kind of gal. What was your first introduction to bourbon?
Honestly, it was when I started dating Danny. I think actually, I didn't really have any bourbon before then. So I just went full throttle when we got married.
I used to be her nickname, Full Throttle.
It still is my nickname, Full Throttle. But I never drank when I was younger because my parents or family might be watching. So I never drank.
Me either.
Yeah, no, never. I didn't do that in her garage.
Yeah. Dan, what about you? Do you remember your first sip of either beer or bourbon?
Do I remember?
Well,
no, but it's a great story. So my nephew and I, ironically, my nephew is 2 years older than me, so we grew up together. And my father was doing some plumbing in our house, and he had a bar in his basement, of course, in the 70s and early 80s, whatever it was. I don't remember the actual age I was, but I was under 10. And so there was a bunch of PVC piping all over the basement. So Gary and I put all the PVC pipes together throughout the whole basement. And I stood on one end, and he went to the other end behind the bar, grabbed a bottle of Jim Beam, and poured it in the one end, and the whole bottle. And by the time it came out to the other end, there was like a little sip, I guess, and I drank it. And my father came home, and of course the basement smelled like Jim Beam, and that was my first sip of whiskey.
Through a PVC pipe.
So I don't have a name. It just comes up as Facebook user, but somebody on Facebook said, "Oh, you know what? That's Leanne, I bet." Dina, remember when your grandma gave us brandy in Arizona? Yeah, that's probably hi, Leanne. So it's yeah, I know. If anybody's parents are watching, Leanne or Dina's parents, that never happened. Yeah. So when anyone starts a business, it's obviously important to set goals for where you see yourself in 5 to 10 years down the road. 5 years down the road, where do you see DJO Signs and Such?
I would hope it picks up strong enough where we have our own storefront. And either I'm still working out of a shop like this, or there's a spot where I can work in the storefront doing my business. That's where the ultimate goal would be.
Then he's a little bit closer to retirement.
So yeah, I'm closer to retirement, but still doing my own thing and staying with the times. Because we hit the bourbon craze at the right time. But do I think I'm gonna always stay with Bourbon Barrels? Probably, but that might not be the biggest thing I'm doing in 5 years. Sure. I don't know. We'll find. That's only time can tell that.
Well, you guys don't have a storefront now, but you said earlier that you guys have a space that in a store. Correct. That people can go to, not now, of course, but when this whole thing passes, that people can actually go to and see your stuff, up close. I do have the website link right here for anybody that wants to take a look at. Yeah, I know. I think I got it. I think I got it right there. There we go. So if anybody wants to go check out their product, you guys have made a ton of different pieces specifically for individuals. This one right behind me, obviously being one of them. What was your favorite project to work on?
Oh, I don't know, Mike. It might have been your.
Yeah, I think so.
Honestly,
your card box was pretty cool.
Between my wife and I at one time, it's like, no, that's not what I want. Like,
I want this for them.
What do they want? I don't know. They gave us carte blanche. I'm like, okay, well, that was probably a cool one. I mean, we can pretty much customize almost anything with I want to call it the technology that we have.
Yeah, we've upgraded a lot of our tools.
Not tools, your tools, not mine.
Yeah, I have the important tools.
Yeah, we bought the stencil making machine, so that's the biggest thing for us. So I can turn any barrel head, like if I wanted to customize, this for somebody else, like I have an order actually for a Jim Beam for my buddy Lance, if he's
Jack
watching.
Daniels.
He wants me to
Daniels.
add some lettering to the Jim Beam. Yeah, I'm sorry, Jack Daniels. For him. So we can pretty much do any customization, same with the staves. Those are just our sayings, but we can put we can make a stencil, put anything on it.
And I think that goes back to your question too before, is how are we trying to stay with the times with this epidemic? And we offer more customization. I mean, everybody's staying in their homes more now and trying to work on home improvement projects.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're tired of those blank walls? I think we got something that can fill every single piece of it.
And it doesn't have to be on a barrel head. If somebody says, hey, I want to do it on a square piece of oak, okay, I could, whatever you want.
Yeah, over Christmas time, we actually had a couple that picked up 2 Lazy Susans for some gifts, and they were just the ones with the maker's marks, Jim Beam's, the labeling on it. And then she's like, would you mind making one just plain? Can you take off the labeling, the markings on it? And we're like, we can do whatever you want. Is that really what you want?
Whatever you want.
So she was giving them to a family member that, maybe not into alcohol as much as some of us. So anyway, yeah, I mean, bourbon barrels are great because they're solid oak. They've only been used once.
True.
So there's lots of life out of them.
And there's character in every one. Every single one looks different. So, and trying to keep them as tight as possible is almost impossible. You know what I mean? And sometimes you get some that are, I keep looking at the one over my shoulder that you can't see, but I don't remember if yours
Chris,
is really tight or not. You can see how, this one, there's gathering. So it's hard to keep that together.
Right.
You know what I mean? Thanks. So, and that being part of one is unique, but then there's scratches on it and there's check marks from rolling through the rook, and is all that stuff that they're just unique.
Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons that we really got into this, not only because we love going to Kentucky, but the story is just so wonderful.
Yeah.
They really are.
The story is so unique, and honestly, I've learned so much being friends with you, and being part of the society, and all the other stories that are yet to be told. But I mean, it just
and my history too with me and my family. My grandfather made barrels.
Yeah, so, that's right. Yeah, he was a cooper.
Root beer.
Root beer.
Root beer. Yeah, sure.
My mom said it was for oil, I think.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
So you guys can, you guys can even do, if there's any businesses watching, we have, shout out to the Sipping Social guys. I know you guys listen to the Sipping Social podcast, Garrett, Mike and Johnny over there at the Sipping Social podcast. They're part of the Bourbon Belly group, which is Burger Local, Burger Social, Barrel and Rye, Maize and Mash. Yep. So they're in Glen Ellen, Geneva. This would be, a great opportunity for them to, get a barrel head or something, and utilize it from you guys. I know, Bill over at Journeyman, we were just talking with him on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Contact information, because I think that would be a good partnership. But you guys do pretty much everything, anything bourbon related when it comes to signs or furniture. And that's a really popular thing that you're seeing specifically now. You see on a lot of these bourbon threads and bourbon groups on Facebook, everybody's like, oh, we'll post a picture of your basement bar. And everything kind of, it looks really neat and cool. And some of them are just kind of plain Jane. But, to have something like this where it just makes it pop, is really something special. And there's not a lot of people out there that are doing specifically this, where it's just bourbon barrels.
Up here,
right.
No. Honestly, Mike, I think there's only 2 other people in the Chicagoland area that we found that are doing it up this way. And there's, down in Kentucky, that's.
Oh, I'm sure it's a dime a dozen down there. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But up here, there's only a couple people doing it.
And we go down to Kentucky every time to pick up the product. So we're picking it up ourselves.
I know. I was there with you one time when you
Yes, you
when
were.
Yeah. Yeah, and unfortunately during this epidemic, I mean, we're gonna have to, rules or not rules, I'm getting in my truck one day and I'm gonna have to drive down 5-6 hours, pick up material, turn around and come back because there's nothing open down there to do anything.
Yeah.
So
well, I was talking with Jared last night from Wilderness Trail, and I think I asked him if he's got any extra barrels left over, but I don't remember. But so Jared or Wilderness Trail, if you guys are watching, if you guys have any extra barrels left over, throw them, toss them these guys.
let me
know.
There we go.
We have good use of them.
Yeah. So it's no secret that quarantine has been tough on everybody. Aside on focusing on the business, what have you two been doing to stay busy? Let's keep it PG, by the way.
I'm kidding when I'm drinking.
Yeah.
You know what? Since I've been, I'm home now 100% as of last Wednesday. So for me, it's great because I get to get up. I get to actually go work out in our gym in the house. I get to go work in the shop all day long. Another passion of mine is cooking, so I get to have fun on my smokers and I cook.
That's been delightful.
I forgot about that.
So for me, it's great. You know, I'm getting a lot of stuff done for the business, and I'm enjoying myself. You know, it's only been a week, but who knows how long it's going to be. But for right now, I'm actually enjoying myself because it's like a break from my normal, driving to work, all that nonsense.
Sure.
Yeah, he drives. So he's working downtown in the city right now. And if you didn't know, well, not now, but now, parking just went up. So he goes down 3 hours before work.
I would drive down a lot earlier than I have to, sleep in my truck, get a parking spot by the job, and then go to work and then drive home. Just, there's just a break. I mean, the stress level is gone since I'm home.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. And I'm sure that's probably the same for a lot of people too. I quarantined myself for 3 weeks in the very beginning of this because we're getting married in just over like 2 weeks, like literally just over 2 weeks. So I quarantined myself at the very beginning of this just to kind of play it safe. I went back to work for a week and then I screwed my back up, so I've been out for the past week. But I mean, you're right, in a way it kind of is. It's kind of nice to just have that free time to I read books. I obviously did some, researched questions and stuff and kind of figured this whole thing out with this live cast.
Mike,
and
we like when you read books.
I did. I have a bunch of them because I know, Dan, you asked me if there's any that I can let you borrow. I do have a lot. You just have to mind the Post-it notes and the incessant highlighting on every single page.
A copious amount of Post-it
I have
notes.
one book that I started reading, and hopefully I'll be able to get back to it, that I bought, but I don't remember which one it is. Because I only read like two. Oh yeah, here it is. Which book is it that I started, Mike? It is. Thanks, Chris.
So helpful having Chris around.
What is it?
The Bourbon Bible.
Is that the one that with the reviews?
Yes,
it is.
Reviews and some, and I think there's drinks in it and everything else.
Do you like his bookmark? You can also get these if you want at DJO Signs and Such.
Is that is that the ring?
The metal ring.
Of course. Why wouldn't we have one of these as our
I use my bottle opener that Uncle Nearest gave us at that event that we hosted. I use that as a
don't have a bottle opener
bookmark.
like this, though.
I don't know, but you guys also have bottle openers. And for anybody out there who's looking for a good book to read, anything by Michael Veach or Fred Minnick is obviously a really great book. You guys had mentioned going down in Kentucky now a few, I guess we'll call it a couple months ago now. You guys went down to Kentucky with myself and Dina. You guys were actually already down there. It was just kind of happenstance that we were both going to be there at the same time. So we stayed at the same hotel and we basically kind of palled around town. What was your favorite part of that trip, other than the obvious hanging out with me?
Oh,
that Saturday was a enjoyable Saturday. I gotta tell you,
it was.
We had a lot of fun. What was the most enjoyable thing?
I don't know. I think this is the first time that we've been down to Kentucky because we do business and we try to do a little bit of pleasure because, like I said, we love to go down to Kentucky. I've been going down since I was young. I have some family down in Kentucky, Tom and Trish, and it's just such a different feel down there. It's so low key, laid back.
Driving in the city of Chicago and driving in Kentucky, I want to kill everybody down here.
Night and day. Yeah.
So
that was definitely a fun trip, though. I mean, we went to the Jim Beam Still House down there in downtown Louisville, down there in Main Street. We had a homeless person ask if he would take a picture. He said, hey, give me your phone. I'll give you mine as collateral, and I'll take a picture of you. And his phone was like cracked and broken, and like it probably didn't even work. And we're like, what a fucking scum, But it was a good experience. We went down to Angel's Envy. We went to we did the Evan Williams experience, and I spent more money down there than I probably should have. But
I can't.
Yeah, but we got some really good bottles of some really good bottles.
And what was the one place that we went to with the Four Roses?
Oh, that poured you that Jim Beam, and he was like, "Oh yeah, this is fine," and it was the old Dusty.
Oh, Haymarket.
Yeah.
Haymarket. Yeah. So I asked for he had this, it was like a new bottle that they just got in their collection. It's funny because I actually follow them on Instagram, and they have a lot of these bottles, and I'm kind of concerned for the remainder of those bottles. But the guy was behind the bar was like, you could tell he didn't really know a whole lot, which for a bourbon bar is kind of discerning, but it was early in the day, and we're thinking, I'm thinking like maybe he's going to be relieved.
He should have told the price of that, the Four Roses before he poured both of them.
Oh yeah.
High rollers.
The anniversary series or whatever it was from like 2014 single barrel, and it was like $40 a pour. But then I asked for a Jim Beam. They had a Jim Beam from 1970 whatever, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll take that one. And he's like, it's $20 a pour. I'm like, all right, man, whatever. And he pours it, and do you remember the way it looked? It looked like muddy, scummy pond water.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a minute. And I like, nope, that's not, that's definitely bad. So I follow them on, I follow them on Instagram, and, they post a lot of stuff, and I'm hoping that they have, at least opened some of them and poured it a little bit out just to see what it looks like, so that nobody else has to go through that experience.
And we did go to the secret room in Josh's House of Bourbon.
We did go to Justin's House of Bourbon in downtown Louisville, which for those of you who follow Justin's House of Bourbon on Instagram or any kind of social media, that it's a place where you can go to get these really, really rare, expensive, hard to find bottles for a reasonable price.
Yeah.
Dan, they had the E.H. Taylor barrel proof,
didn't you?
and it was like $500.
I grabbed it. I looked at it. You're like, oh, if you're not, I'm buying that. I'm like, no, you're not.
Yeah, they ran over there. $499.99.
Yeah,
but we did. We got to see the secret room that was back there, and there was a lot of people at the bar. It was a really interesting, really cool place. I did end up picking up a bottle of the Four Roses small batch select for exactly what retail is. So that was pretty reasonable.
Up here. That's good.
Oh yeah, we could have done. They had the Flight of Blantons. Remember that, Maggie? They had the Flight of Blantons, and we're like, oh.
$125, I think.
When we go back with Dan, we'll do the flight.
Exactly. Yeah. All right, so you guys, I've got some. Obviously, we lob you the softball questions, but so now comes the hard hitting questions. Discus, which is the Distilled Spirit Council of the United States, and the KDA, which is the Kentucky Distillers Association, along with many of the large distilleries and cooperages in the United States, are closely watching the availability of oak trees that are used for bourbon barrels. Many are worried that oak shortages will result in bourbon shortages. As a business who uses these barrels for pieces of furniture and someone who drinks copious amounts of bourbon, what does this announcement mean for you as a business, someone who uses these barrels, knowing that bourbon barrels may soon be harder to get a hold of?
Well, when you say soon, I mean, are we talking?
Well, soon is, we're looking, we look in the eyes of the distiller where, soon for them is 8 years, 10 years, 15 years down the road. But, regardless, it's still a possibility that, some of these bourbon barrels could potentially be, become harder to find.
Reuse them because they're not going to be able to get new charred oak barrels.
Sure. So in that case, it's not that they would ever change the description of what bourbon is being aged in new unused barrels. But, it's still a real possibility, especially with the shortage of oak, nationwide. But again, this is all hearsay. It could be, years and years down the road. But when you have these major organizations that are worried about it, it kind of puts some worry into the mind of the bourbon drinkers that are thinking like, oh man, what's going to happen? What's going to happen down the road?
Absolutely.
I think for me right now, if that is the way things are going to go, I'm glad that I've started a collection of wide variety of bourbon at the pricing it is now, because the pricing is going to go up if that happens.
Yeah.
Being a business owner that works with the barrels, I don't think that, obviously the craze and all this would end, and any product that I still have when that happens, our product would be worth more money, so bonus for us.
But also means that we might not have inventory.
Yeah, then our inventory would change, and we wouldn't be working with barrels. We would have to work with something else. So it would just be the changing of the times, I think, for DJO Signs and Such, if that ever happens.
Yeah, it's and like I said, it's one of those things. Discus is obviously the Distilled Spirits Council of the United States, and then the KDA, which is the Kentucky Distillers Association. They kind of are the driving force of what distilleries kind of look at as far as what law and legislature and everything. It's scary when you see these two organizations that are saying like, well, the oak oak trees could dry up soon because of, we're milling it and we're logging it so frequently. And all of us bourbon drinkers are like, what?
Yeah, but bourbon has been around for ages, and
oak, same thing with oak. I mean, it's not so the farms that are farming the oak are cutting trees down, and they're planting trees.
Sure.
They're cutting trees down and they're planting trees. So to say that there's not going to be any more oak, that means the idiots aren't planting trees to take the ones that they've cut down. And that's not how farming goes.
Yeah.
And that's not how logging goes. I mean, my cousins live way up in Wisconsin, log all the time on their properties. They cut trees down, they replant trees. It takes a long time to build and have an oak tree grow, just like it takes a long time to get good bourbon.
Mm-hmm.
But so there's still trees growing that they're going to be able to cut down in 8 years.
Sure. What is regarding wood species? What is the strangest, or is it just oak that you've worked with? But is there any like strange species of wood that you've worked with, and you're like, man, this is
at Babinga on projects? But there's this. Oh gosh, I cannot remember what the name. Now it eludes me, but it's wood that they're using for outdoor decks right now. And pergolas, and it's found in like the Amazon in the rivers. It is the hardest. Oh.
Is it Ipe or Ipe wood? IPE?
Ipe. Ipe.
Yeah.
You've never surprised us.
No. Well, I work at a large home improvement. I work them, so I'm around it all day.
Ipe. That is the hardest stuff to work with ever. It'll burn up drill bits. It'll burn up saw blades. But you put it outside, and it'll last forever.
Yep.
That is probably the hardest stuff I've ever worked with.
Yeah, that's an interesting wood too, and it's interesting because for those that are unfamiliar with bourbon, bourbon barrels have to be made out of new, have to be put in a new charred oak container. But it doesn't specifically say that it has to be American oak. So it can be Japanese oak, it can be Canadian oak, it can be any kind of oak. American oak just works best because of the cellular structure. It's so tight and rigid that it doesn't leak very easily. But I'd be interested to see in the future, if what Discus and the KDA are saying is true at all. What kind of things we experience with bourbon, 10, 15, probably 30, 40 years from now, when, people are starting to use more and more, unique species of wood. So we'll do another hard question. We'll go back to talking bourbon. Being an entrepreneur is a difficult profession, especially on a married couple. What kind of balance do you two strike between business and personal life?
Ooh,
Thank goodness that my son lives with us.
Hard questions. That's the Larry King questions here on the show.
Tough question. I think almost every day for us to wind down after a day after I've been come home.
Bourbon brought us together.
Bourbon brought us together, and I think bourbon winds our day down every day. I mean, it's a little different now for me because I'm home, but there's been days I come home and I'm aggravated from my regular job, and I know I got work to do in the shop, and I go into the shop and I do my thing, and she just leaves me alone. And when I'm done, I come in and she just looks at me, and I go straight downstairs. I pour myself a cocktail, and she follows me down, and that, I think right there, it's what keeps us together, melding. And it's not that we drink every night to get a blue. No, you drink to taste, to remember. It's the history, and I think that's what's the coolest thing.
Yeah. And we do separate a lot of stuff. So I have an office in this house, and when we're in there, we know, okay, we're going to talk about business right now. And then once we leave the office, it's like, okay, we go on to our merry way.
I wish my office was that way, but it doesn't work out because it's the garage. But it's fun. It's fun too, because sometimes on Saturday nights when I'm done working with power tools, because I like my fingers, I got to go this way.
Yeah.
So I'll start having a couple cocktails, and we'll go back out to the garage. And that's when I can pull out the airbrush machine and we
then we get creative.
We get creative, because then she'll go into the computer or make a stencil, and I'll put it on. Oh, that's in.
And we don't have pressure, so that's
right. So then it's fun time.
That's great to have for a married couple, because you're winding down. You both had a stressful week. You can. All right, what do you want to do? What do you want to? What do you think of this? Oh, who cares?
We have fun that way. So I think that's a good balance for us, and not saying we're alcoholics, but alcohol makes fun.
It does. Nobody ever had fun after eating a salad.
No.
Or what's the phrase? No sentence ever started with "I ate a salad."
Exactly.
Yeah. So let's talk bourbon here real quick. Maggie, we know you guys have quite a collection. Maggie, we know you're a big whiskey sour and Bullet fan. Dan, I know you prefer yours neat. What's the one bourbon you have been searching for to add to your collection that keeps eluding you?
Keeps eluding me.
That's
Weller 12.
Really?
Yeah, I have one bottle. Well, actually, it's not even my bottle. It's my stepson's bottle.
Yeah.
I take it back. I have two bottles. I have my own bottle that I will never open. I have a set of all Weller that I will never open. And then once I get a backup, that's the one I can open.
Sure.
Well, this bottle of Weller 12 is his.
Christopher's.
Not mine. I can never find it.
So he shared.
So he shared his bottle. And I don't drink it unless he's drinking it with me.
Maggie, what about you? Other than your Bullet, what's that one thing that you're like, damn, I can never find it?
Dan took a piece of my heart. Dan Greifin, shout out to you. I know you're working.
Oh, I know what it is.
I know what you just turn the camera a little bit.
I know what it is. It's the Horsies in gold.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the Horsey in gold.
My son's friend is watching. I treasure this always, because he was in the service, or he is in the service, and he was so kind to gift me a little bottle of.
He didn't gift it to you. He gifted it to Chris and myself.
But I do love my Horsies. Blanton's is my favorite.
One of the things that I always have kind of found fascinating is that when people say they ask me what's your favorite whiskey, and I tell them what was your favorite whiskey, or what was the one that you remember most, and I tell them that my favorite glass of whiskey that I've ever had was a glass of Gentleman Jack shortly after I proposed to Dina. And I found that it's not necessarily what's in the glass. It's the moment that you're in, right? It's the people you're with and the thing that you just experienced. We interviewed Mark Kokel last week with One Trick Pony Brewery out there in Lansing, Illinois. And I asked him, I said, what's your favorite beer? Or what was your most memorable experience? And he goes, my favorite, the best beer that I've ever had was a Budweiser on the train on my way home from Chicago after a rough day of work. And I thought that's very interesting. You know, it's not necessarily, it doesn't have to be that $400 or that, 50-year-old bottle of scotch. It just has to be the moment that you're in. What is your most memorable or your favorite glass of whiskey or beer that you've ever had?
Well, my wife is showing you hers.
Does that say Maggie on it?
It's a Hellcat Maggie.
Hellcat Maggie.
So there's a local restaurant by us called Blue Root, and the bartender Kevin. When we had first moved into here, we were still kind of searching around the establishments. We didn't know where we were going. We went into that place, just Danny and I, a nice night out, which we don't do night outs. We do nights in. So we went in there.
To cook than go out.
Yeah, and it's cheaper when you were drinking. So we went into this place, and Kevin was like talking to us, and he's like, "Oh, you need to do a shot of this." And we've had it before, but we went in there. He served it to us. We went in there a couple times afterwards, and every time we go in there, he's like, "Get the Hellcat Maggie."
We were walking in the door the one time. He saw us, and he's like, "Hey, Dan and Maggie." He stopped what he was doing, poured 2 shots, and gave it to us.
And it just brings back good memories.
Yeah. Dan, what about you?
Oh, that's a tough question, Mike. I mean, I've had. That's a tough question.
See, you get tough questions on this show.
Yeah. Most memorable whiskey, probably this Christmas, was when you said you were looking for the unicorn. So we all love unicorns, and Pappy was my unicorn. And I found a liquor store that I got into a raffle for. Long story short, end of the deal, I got a bottle of Pappy 12, and I opened it on Christmas Day, and that was probably, I enjoyed the hell out of it. I had a Glencairn with that and a Pappy cigar on Christmas Day in shorts on my deck, which is amazing.
See, that would probably be up there for me too. Yeah, that would be up there for me for
memorable glass of whiskey right there.
Yeah, it's always, and Mark and I talked about this last week with One Trick Pony. We talked about this last week about how it's always very interesting. It doesn't have to be, that sought after, $1,000 bottle or one that's, a bottle of scotch that's been aging in barrels for 50 years. It really just has to be it's the experience and what you're doing in that moment that you're always going to remember.
And it could have
still remember. And this was back when I was still drinking, on the rocks, so it was, the glass was filled with ice, and it's just Gentleman Jack. So there's really not anything special about it at all, but it's still, I remember the whole day. I remember the moment. I remember sipping on it. I remember the taste. I remember everything about it. So it's always just kind of very interesting, to see what everybody else has. What else do I got here? Here we go.
Not my favorite whiskey in the world.
What's that?
So I said the Pappy 12, not my favorite whiskey.
Yeah, I've had a few of them. I don't know, they're all right.
Yeah.
They're not, fantastic. They're great. They're good. They're really good. But it is what it is.
Yeah.
Hold on, I have to read this next questions. Oh, okay. So, with the whole COVID-19 pandemic and everything, a lot of distilleries and microbreweries, craft breweries, craft distilleries are kind of, shuttering right now. They're looking at it like, what are we going to do? We're not distillers. We don't own a distillery. We don't own a brewery. And our input on issues like will craft spirits survive this pandemic is one that should really be taken with a grain of salt, because we're not in the industry.
Absolutely.
However, the biggest topic of conversation in the craft industry is what will happen to craft spirits. Do you think the craft spirits industry, whether it's a brewery or a distillery, will able to pull out of this pandemic and go back to normal? And if not, what changes do you guys see happening in the craft spirit world? And again, we're not distillers, we're not brewers, but it's just interesting to kind of see people's input on what do you think
I think a lot of
is
them
going to happen after all this?
I think a lot of them are going to close. I mean, as you know, my family had a distillery in the family, and they closed because of laws before the pandemic.
Yep.
And I think that a lot of smaller distilleries, and I don't know if that same laws why they had to close are going to affect the breweries as well, but they're going to have issues. I truly think they're going to have issues. If they're not doing, especially for craft distillers right now, and if they're not in their distillery distilling now, if they're not there working now I understand, you got to understand they're not making any money because they're not selling anything because they can't. And if they don't have the funding and the backup to be able to keep distilling, well, what's going to happen to them? They're going to have to like starting off from scratch again, or losing their distillery because they can't afford it because they're not working and making any money. So I think it's going to be a big effect on distilleries and breweries.
Small businesses in general.
Small business in general,
right,
is going to get affected. Now, do I think that when this is over with, small businesses, distilleries and breweries and everything else that has made it through is going to be huge? This is a restart for the United States, I think, and what's going to come out of it is going to be Buy America, support small business.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't do that as United States citizens, we're going to go back into a depression again.
Yeah, and that's really important, especially now. We try not to eat out as very much. I've been off work for the past week. I took 3 weeks off unpaid. So, we're basically working on, savings, and Dina's fortunate enough to work from home. So we're trying not to eat out too often. But when we do, we make sure it's a local business. We support the guys over at the beer cellar and a lot of the, the craft breweries and distilleries, whether it's buying hand sanitizer or just going in there to pick up a 6-pack of beer or whatever it is, or, getting dinner for the night. We're very fortunate to kind of live in an area as you guys are, because you guys are just outside of Dundee, which has a fantastic small business scene. We've been fortunate here in North Aurora to have, Melissa over at River's Edge Bar in downtown Batavia, supply meals and we've ordered from them quite a few times, but you're right. I think it's very important to kind of support that small business right now so that everybody can kind of hopefully get back on their feet. But it's funny that you mentioned the breweries, because the Brewers Association just released a survey saying that 46% of craft breweries, which is about 3,800 nationwide, may be forced to close permanently within the next 3 months. That's almost 4,000 breweries nationwide that might be forced to close within the next 3 months, which is, it's scary.
Is that just because they can't make it with?
So the statistic was basically if these businesses have, anything that's been in business longer than about 5 years should be okay. They've paid back their vendors, they've paid back their loans, they've paid back everything that they need, and they're starting to make profits. Anything less than that, they're still owing on brewery equipment and distilling equipment and paying their employees and this, that, and the other. And it's, it's a very real statistic. It's a very scary scenario where, people might lose their livelihoods, and go back to doing something that they weren't happy with, which is why they got into the business to begin with, because, like you guys, it's, it's something that makes you happy.
Mm-hmm. Right. And which is more important to, like he has said before, alluded to, is, you got to support local and support people, where the products are coming from.
Buy America and support local.
Yeah. Yeah. So if anybody out there listening, if you guys got any questions, we got about 6 minutes left.
So I have to do a couple shout outs, Mike, because you met my baseball family, which is huge to me. This is one of my morning years because my son has just graduated college, and now he is no longer in baseball. So, you know, I've been watching baseball since 5 years old. So one of my baseball families, you met them up in Kentucky. So.
In Kentucky, yeah. So, so somebody, and I've got it up on the screen here, James the Cool said, shout out from Angel in Kentucky. And then we've got, here we go. There we go. Judy Johnson.
Yep.
There we go. How about seeing your baseball friends? Ashley M said, I want a flight of Blanton's. And somebody, it looks like somebody hacked your account.
My son, he's answering questions for us. So Ashley, actually, my husband has turned it into a bourbon guru.
Yeah, she didn't drink bourbon until she started hanging out with us.
Yeah.
She's my wife's hairdresser.
So now she knows what Bland's is.
So I call her the hair goddess. Yeah, that's it.
So what? So I poured myself a little bit earlier. I poured myself a smoke wagon, the smoke wagon small batch, which I got from the beer cellar in downtown Geneva, which they still have in stock if anybody's wondering. And they also have the unfiltered, uncut, and there's another one that they have as well. I switched over to the Four Roses single barrel Benny's Pick. What are you guys sipping on right now?
Go ahead.
Well, I'm finishing a Weller Flight. I started off with Reserve, went to 107, and now I've got Foolproof.
What do you think of the Foolproof?
I like it. It's bold. It's really sweet. It's very, very similar to 107.
That's what I found too.
Yeah, very similar. And now I've also heard that they're going to drop 107 and just pick up Foolproof. Don't know if that's true, but I have heard that.
So Buffalo Trace about 3, maybe 4 months ago announced a
orange label.
The orange label. Was it a single barrel?
Yes.
It was the single barrel, right? Or was it it was a single barrel.
Barrel.
I'm curious.
It actually should be coming out very soon.
It should be. If it does, it should be coming out very soon. I know Buffalo Trace is in the process right now of releasing their kosher, their kosher line of bourbon, a bourbon, a rye, and then a weeded bourbon. What's that?
That 12 year they're supposed to be releasing?
No, a kosher version of their a bourbon, a weeded bourbon, and then a rye that they'll be releasing very soon. So that should be interesting to see where that gets allocated to and how much that one is going to run. Those Buffalo Trace fanboys, anytime they see something new, it's let me buy it for $40 and then flip it for $500.
Never gonna buy it for that price.
Mm-hmm.
And Warehouse Liquors in Chicago just recently released one of the first, I think it might have been the second ever store pick E.H. Taylor single barrel that Warehouse Liquors was able to do a barrel pick for. That one sold for, I want to say, like, I don't know, like $70 or $80 or something. And then immediately people were flipping it on the secondary market for like $500 and $600.
Wow.
Wild.
Got 3. Two are the same, 2 are different. And
Can you
pay what the market price is for those?
Yeah, so I actually got the beer cellar in Geneva, shout out to those guys. They've been getting some pretty decent stuff. Stag Junior for like $50. I just got the E.H. Taylor rye, which I've never ever seen anywhere. For I want to say like $68 or something like that. Yeah, but shout out to them for bringing in the good stuff.
I've never been, so I'll have to go check them
out.
Oh,
it's an absolutely awesome place. So huge props to Dave Hawley and everybody out there at the Geneva location and the Glen Ellen location. It's a really, really cool place, especially if you're looking for some really interesting beer. Those guys over there, man, they know their stuff. When it comes to you walk in there and say, I want this flavor profile, or I want something that tastes like this, and they'll walk you right to it.
Wow.
So it's a really cool place. Dan, can you hold up that flight holder that you have and show everybody what it is? Because I
this is the Glencairn one. We actually have a shot one that can be used as, whiskey, whatever. And we also have a beer one.
So it all fits.
Really?
So whatever your pleasure is.
The flight itself, the wood, and depending on the glass you want, it'll fit all the same.
And hold the Glencairn.
Now, if I wanted one, instead of holding 3 glasses, I want one to hold 4 or 5.
That would be a custom one, and I would make a custom one for you.
Okay.
Absolutely.
This is my product is.
And you can still see the char on the other side.
Oh yeah, that's a legit real barrel stave.
Yeah, and I don't know if you. It's kind of funny for me being the builder. Every time we had a flight down in Kentucky, did you notice every time I went, hey Maggie, look.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I was doing it differently, and I decided to go this route.
And not a lot of places sell actual real flights with the right glasses.
The way I was fabricating it, and it's much easier for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can make them anywhere. I mean, you want a flight of a whole stave? I could do that.
You want to be a single drinker and pair it up with a cigar?
See, that's what I need with my Fox Valley Whiskey Society rocks glass. I need to just set it in there. I haven't had a cigar, and I can't tell you how long.
Mike, we'll have to change that.
Yeah.
We sell these with the glasses that fit the actual hole, because I found
that comes with a glass.
Yes, because I found that if I'm trying to make it, and obviously barrel staves are all different sizes, so I picked a size of drill bit that I use that'll work, and we make sure that we buy the same rocks glasses that fit. So you're not, and then your collection of rocks glasses, you may find one that'll still work as well. Because I have a couple in my collection that'll work in these, but I make sure I sell them with the glass.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. And then we do the same situation for a Glencairn, and one that's not an ashtray, it's just like a cigar rester.
Sure.
We also make coasters.
Candle holders.
It's candle holder. I love those candle holders. And the picture that you have on your website is like it makes me want to put one up for like Thanksgiving almost.
Oh, that was due to my son's girlfriend, Kylie. Kylie did those photographs. Thanks, Kylie.
So we have the link right here. If anybody's watching, we have the link to DJO Signs and Such.com, so you guys can find their product. Let me see if I can. There we go. Right there. Thank you, Dina, for posting that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you guys for coming on. What do you guys think about doing a virtual? You guys want to do a virtual pub tomorrow?
Yes.
Let's do a virtual pub. We haven't got together with a lot of these people in a while. So let's say tomorrow. What's tomorrow? Saturday. We'll say 7, maybe 7, 8 o'clock, something like that.
In the morning.
Wait, you let us know, Mike. We're in.
Yeah. And whatever your needs are, you can hit us up on Facebook. We have a Facebook page. We have a Facebook group. We have our website, which Dina posted. But whatever you need, we can customize anything.
If you need a custom table made,
no
whatever,
job.
you let me know. You run across me. If I think I can do it, we'll talk.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully, it would be great for you guys to hear from from some of these places. And Garrett, I'm looking at you, Garrett Turnquist. I'm looking at you. Give these guys a shout out for some, give these guys a call for some custom work to hang up over there at Maze and Mash. Hopefully you guys get some phone calls and some orders on the website. I think it would be great for Bill Welter over at Journeyman Distillery to get in touch with you guys. Or you guys now have each other's contact information, and I think that would be really cool because they do a lot of weddings over there. I would love to get married there, but I think where we're getting married down in North Carolina, I think that's a little bit better. Yeah, we have a beach down there. So thank you guys for coming on tonight. We'll post some links down in the comments here in a little bit. where you guys can find DJO Signs and Such on Facebook, Instagram, and hopefully get some stuff from them to make your bourbon collection and your bourbon bar a little bit more interesting. Dan, Maggie, thank you for joining us tonight. Hopefully this whole thing doesn't end. Yeah, cheers to you guys. Hopefully this whole thing doesn't end too prematurely and we end up getting more people sick than already are. But hopefully it ends soon enough and we can go back to a little bit of normalcy and make another trip down there to Kentucky. I'd love to get back down there. And
we'll go visit Bill too. That's not far at all.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's only 2 hours. Perfect.
So we'll keep in touch, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. We'll do the virtual pub. So if anybody is still listening, you guys want to join a virtual pub, we'll do it tomorrow. We'll say tomorrow like 7:30. Pour yourself a bourbon or a glass of wine or a beer or whatever, and just come hang out for a little while on the Fox Valley Whiskey Society Facebook group, and we'll post a link to Zoom, and we'll have a drink together.
Sounds good.
Yes. Thanks again, Mike and Dina.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching. I've been Mike with the Glass Less Traveled, and we will see you guys next week.